We go from Super Bowl 4 to Super Bowl 54, a huge, 50 years. And then just by the ratios, compounding interest or however you want to call it, you start seeing 4 years and then back to back. Mathematically, this should be a three-peat, right?
Hey, I like your math. I've never taken that class, DC's class of algebra, ratios or percentages, whatever you said, but I like it. I like where you're going with this. Yes. Why not? Why not?
Thanks for listening to KC Sports Network, proudly presented by Emprise Bank. If you're thinking about starting a business or know someone who is, check out Emprise Bank's SBA loans. It's always good to know your options, and they can be your partner in possible.
What is up, guys? Happy game week. It is week 1, and we got another special episode. It's Hang Time with Dustin Colquitt and myself, Hayley Lewis. This is a fun one, Dustin. I'm excited for this guy. I mean, you might know him. He was a return ace, is what I would like to call him. Logged almost 13,000 return yards in the NFL, so that's some kind of record up there. Played for the Chiefs all the way up until 2006 when played 2 years for the St. Louis Rams, but obviously best known for that infamous return against the Denver Broncos. Dustin, will you welcome our guest?
Yes, and one of my best buddies. I loved him. He was the special teams X Factor, the human joystick, Dante Hall. And it's unbelievable that he would be responsible some games for a third of our first downs.
Yeah.
Just on kick and punt returns. And just his iconic punt return in Denver, he's wheeling the tires, running 93 yards. And big hug from Tony DePardo, which everybody, an icon in Kansas City stadium history and Arrowhead stadium history. And, man, super pumped to have him on the show today.
Yeah, there's a lot of good nuggets, so make sure you listen through. They talk a lot about, playing for Dick Vermeil's, certain kind of practices, talking about the new return game, and just the kind of player that Dante was here in Kansas City as the Chiefs are gearing up to three-peat. You can't talk about Kansas City without talking about that three-peat. So please take a listen. Here he comes, Mr. Dante Hall.
Shop Chiefs tickets and more with no fees. Plus, save big with code KCSN at ticketsforless.com, the official ticket provider of KC Sports Network.
Dante, welcome to the show. I already know that this is going to be a fun one, just the way you immediately got on it. What were you and Dustin doing? What is this now?
That's just my signature. When I see a fellow teammate, I throw up the X. It's
throw it up.
It's not hard.
There you go. Well, hey. We're happy you're on the show. We're happy you're taking the time. I'm sure we got a lot to talk through. You going into the Chiefs Hall of Fame last year, always having you around in the community has been so much fun to see what you do here in Kansas City. But first, just want to break the ice. How excited are you for the season? Are you going to be at the Kingdom mini games? What are you looking forward to the most?
So I'm super excited about the season for sure. I feel like going into the previous seasons, the past 2 seasons, especially once Tyreek Hill left, I felt like, I don't know about this year. I had a lot of reservation. This particular season, I feel very confident in the team, and I do truly, sincerely believe we are going to witness history this year. I see a three-peat for the first time, so very excited about that. And as far as games at the Kingdom, I'll definitely be there Thursday night for the opener. I'll definitely be at the Cincy game, and I'll definitely be at the Saints Monday night game. After that, we'll see. Yeah, we'll see. Because I do work over in London with Sky Sports every year. So I'll be going over end of October, November. So I'm going to the Kingdom games heavy in the first because I'll be going in the middle part.
Right. I went to London 2 years ago to do like something on Ted Lasso and then to also take a couple with Children's Mercy Hospital, love that hospital in KC, to the NFL game. And I remember walking around after the game, some of the pubs and stuff like that. I could not believe that this happened. I'm sure like Pat McAfee gets this all the time. But, like I'm sitting there and this guy's like, "Are you Dustin Colquitt?" And I was like, "What?" And he was like, you're a kid. You played here like a few years ago, right, mate?
I was wondering.
Oh my gosh! And I was like, "So wait, you're Australian in London and Tottenham? Like what? Like what's going on?" And he goes, "You should come over here and work with some of our footballers. They could be really, really good."
That's really good, TC. That's awesome.
But I'm going like, this is unbelievable. And then it was funny in 2015, that was in 2021, 2015, we played the Detroit Lions there and rolling their 1-5, thinking the season, like, what are we going to do if we lose over here? I mean, this is going to be rough. And then obviously, what happens, Dante. We go on 11 game win. And I want to go back to what you were saying is the Kansas City Chiefs travel well. The Pittsburgh Steelers travel well. Dallas Cowboys travel well. Dante Hall travels well. You go to a lot of the games because you were such a big part, getting drafted out of Texas A&M. I know they weren't SEC then, but it's the closest thing to SEC football, which is why they made that transition into football. And talk about, I just want to like relive some of those glory moments and then get into a little bit of the Super Bowls, because we've seen kind of a punt return by committee with Kadarius Toney. You got Mecole Hardman, in and out, coming back. When you were there, that was it. Nobody even questioned. I mean, they were chanting Dante when you would come out. And we just spoke prior to the shows. I'd be trying to talk to the kicker and punter before the games, and both of them had frogs in their throat thinking about 82.
Yeah, man, you said the glory days. You really don't get that as a return man anymore, or pretty much as a running back. It's just everything is by committee now, and in the skill position, it seems like. But I think, if you have a guy step up and he's consistent, it can be that one guy. It can be that one guy that can put frogs in other guys' throats. You just got to be consistent. I just think that's what it is. We don't have enough guys that are consistent back there. They may drop some, fumble some. Do they have the desire? Everyone can have the skill set, but as a return man, you got to have a desire. That's not an easy position to go and play. And even though you have the skill set, a lot of guys may not really, truly have that burning desire to do it. So I think if you find that guy with the skills and the desire, you can have that one guy.
I don't know who has the desire to run 100 miles per hour down the field and just be ready to be taken out by any given person. That's terrifying.
Yeah, it is. I didn't realize it until I got older, retired, and reflected back, Hayley. It's like, I was somewhat of a nutso doing that, but I'd have to be to play that position.
Yeah. I remember Andy Reid's big thing, and now, especially, I'm not in the building anymore, obviously, but I remember he wanted all of our running backs to finish every run during practice, get down, run through the stripe, score a touchdown. And I remember when I first got into Kansas City, punting to you said, I wrote it in my journal like I do with all of, like, I've done it, because my dad was like, you need to write this stuff down, or because I've forgotten half the stories that I think that I should tell people. And I remember you saying, like, hey, don't take it out. Don't take it off on me. I want you to kick me your best and get ready. The problem is, if I didn't, you finished all those. So, like, you were catching, you weren't saving it for the game. You were trying to make people look stupid during practice, and you did a lot.
So it's funny. Two things. One, catching your balls. I don't know if you know this or not. Maybe I told you then, like you say, we forget so many stories and things that happen. But catching your balls made it so easy for me catching other people's ball in the game. Once I got to the game, it was easy peasy because I'm catching your balls all practice all week long, which is, in my opinion, the most difficult ball I've ever had to catch. That's number one. Number two, that what you saw in me finishing was me paying attention to guys like Will Shields, Tony Gonzalez, Priest Holmes. I'm looking at these guys' practice habits, and I'm like, okay, let me implement that part of my game and practice, because they're great on Sundays because of what they're doing now. So I can't take credit for that. I give credit to Will, Tony Gonzalez, and Priest Holmes, watching them and their practice habits, and that's what made me say, you know what, when I catch a punt, let me take it to the house. And I realized then by doing that, also it made it easier for me to finish in a game because I was finishing and making it so hard on me in practice.
And Dante, I'm sure you've seen, you've been watching a little bit of the preseason here and there, but the new kickoff return, the new return game, they want a lot of pageantry back in football. Would that play to your strong suit? What do you think about it so far?
So I don't think so. I hope I'm wrong. I just did a piece with Sunday Night Football, and I was telling them I personally believe the new rules are going to favor the coverage team because as a return man, you want guys out of their lane, undisciplined, and out of control. Well, returner's kryptonite is a guy that's in his lane, under control, and not wildly, coming down with all his speed and under control. So for me, I'm looking at it like these guys are already in position. They're 20 yards away. They have their fits, and they're under control. I don't see how that's going to be an advantage to the return man. We shall see. I'm sure there would be a couple of pops here and there just because guys returning the ball are talented. But my over-under for NFL kick return touchdowns is less than 10 for the entire season for all 32 teams. Less than 10.
Dustin, put it in your journal. Write it down.
Yeah, I am. And when I think about this, what I get when I think about the new rule and watching them, try to hit a touchback or trying to chip it over or doing these like little bloops over the line and let it be a rugby scrum, what I think about, I have to disagree because when I saw like Dante do stuff like in practice and then it translated to the game, I think he would find the vertical seams in that. And when I see vertical seams, that's why he always finished the punts in practice, because he was looking for a vertical seam. If you can see it during practice, because correct me if I'm wrong, you have 7, 8 practice squad guys that are practice squad All-Americans trying to make the 53-man roster and be 5, 6 guys dressed up on the sidelines.
Right.
And so those guys, that's why Dante, you always say, I was going full speed because those guys are trying to get activated on the active roster.
To me, doesn't mean you can agree with this or not. To me, practice is way harder than Sunday because everything is scripted. They're scripting things to be difficult. They're scripting to give you the worst scenario, and sometimes they give you a best case scenario. But practice was so hard to me. So you can succeed.
Really?
Sunday, practice for me. I can't speak to everyone. For me, practice was way harder than the games. I found the game days to be much easier.
Yeah, and I could agree with you. Dick Vermeil always wanted practice to be harder. He would give. He would give.
Hey, Dustin, he's succeeded.
Yeah, well, it's like he would give the card to the punt return team, and I'm going like they're not going to know what we're running and what we're trying to do, and so sometimes that was frustrating. Then you go to the game, and you're like, all right, there's a reason for this. There's a reason why Tony Gonzalez is catching 100 balls after every practice. But when I first started, 2005, was that your 6th year there, right? Yeah, 2000. Yes, and I remember like we had 2-3 hour long practices up in River Falls, Wisconsin. That wasn't easy. And after you were wanting me to kick after the periods, like, hey, I need some more kicks. And man, I'm going like, this is crazy. Like you want them straight up. You want it to be harder. So, I have to say, I want to go for all of our listeners. I got to go back into this. I always bring this book out sometimes.
Wow.
But when you have a return guy like you, and we'll get into the Super Bowl here too a little bit. I got a couple questions for you. Is one of my favorite touchdowns right before I got there was against Denver. And if we had that stat track on like how many loops and it's X Factor, but the human joystick, when you made that run, I thought one of the coolest parts about that run, Gary Steele's like, running, trying to keep up with you still after even you just burned the tires and field, is you had kind of like the mental capacity to hug a Kansas City icon in Tony DePardo right in front of his band that a lot of our newer fans, they don't even know it was there sometime unless you look back into old books like this. But that was really cool seeing that. You were celebrating with your guys, which you're always great about. Wasn't about you. And then you go to Tony DePardo, and I was like, that was cool. Talk about that.
Tony DePardo was actually family to me, man. A lot of people don't know this. 2 things about Tony. Number one, obviously, he's an icon. Go do your research on Tony DePardo and what he meant to not only the football community in Chiefs Kingdom. Go look at a lot of the presidential inaugurations that he played at. Like, this guy was legit. His wife was a singer. His daughter's a singer. Like, they are a musical family. But Tony was the one guy I would always, for the most part, after the games or on a Monday or off day, I go to his house. They cook me an Italian feast. We drink a lot of wine. So that guy you saw me hugging, that was family. He was my refuge. He was my family away from family. Spent many, many Thanksgivings at his house, Christmas, because as you know, you don't get to go home on Christmas. You practice on Christmas Day.
Right.
You practice on Thanksgiving. And so they were like my family. That's number one. And number two, Tony was one of the rare guys in Kansas City that never asked me for anything. What can I do for you? So I just appreciate it, especially at that time when, I'm doing my thing, blowing up. Everyone is trying to see how they can get something from me. That guy was just, what can I do for you? You want a glass of wine? You want dinner? You want to go to Popeyes? What can I do for you? So it was just a natural thing to give my guy some love when I saw him when I scored that return touchdown.
Yeah, it's I know kind of like when I wasn't there, like I said, I didn't get there until 2 years later, but kind of like watching that, it kind of put things in perspective. Because we spend a lot of times, a lot of holidays, a lot of stuff. And like, I just wonder his insight. You got a guy that was on David Letterman. You have a Lil Wayne, you're in a Lil Wayne song, like bucket list things for me. You have 6 kickoff returns for a touchdown, 5 punt returns. You're one of the other players that have done a kickoff return and a punt return in the same game. And then you can, after that kind of environment in the loudest stadium in the world, loudest outdoor stadium in the world, you go to a person that and he would tell us, like, to let at the time, it was me and Lawrence Tynes, we would go down, we'd be hitting extra points and go down, and he would say, like, he would come down and say, hey, Dustin, how many times do you think we're going to have to open up the band for Dante today? I was like, you never know, bro. I mean, like, at any given time, if somebody's flooding back that way, it may be coming to the house. And so
I miss that band, man. I love the new GHA and all of that, but I miss having that band right there. But
there's something special about a band, something special about a band in football.
Right. That's right.
Yeah, he brought it. So as we look at some of the Super Bowl stuff that we've experienced, Super Bowl 4 to Super Bowl 54, a huge, 50 years, and then just by the ratios, compounding interest or however you want to call it, you start seeing 4 years and then back to back. Mathematically, this should be a three-peat, right?
Hey, I like your math. I've never taken that class, DC's class of algebra, ratios or percentages, whatever you said, but I like it. I like where you're going with this. Yes. Why not? Why not? I mean, if anyone is going to do it, Patrick Mahomes and this crew, Andy Reid, Brett Veach, all of these guys, they've already, in my opinion, made history going 6 straight AFC championships. Are you kidding me? Your first 6 years of starting, keep it going. Keep riding this wave, right? And if you can win back-to-back Super Bowls in down years, what are you supposed to do when you stack your cards again? The only thing, in my opinion, that can derail this team, it won't be focus, it won't be lack of talent, coaching, any of that. Only health.
Yeah.
That's the only thing I think can derail this team. Still, knock on wood, right? Knock on all the wood we can and just see what happens. I just hope that health is not the reason we don't get to see. If they don't get it accomplished, I hope someone beats them and it's not health that derails them.
Yeah,
Hayley, I think where you're going is we've seen a 16 seed beat a 1 seed.
Yeah.
We've seen so many things, but we've had 9 times in the NFL history since 1958 back-to-backs, but not a three-peat. So, I mean, we got to do it.
I think what comes, a lot of things is like a little bit of luck has to be there, right? Yes. Yes, you have to stay healthy. The schedule's going to suck. I mean, everyone's schedule's going to suck at some point. Everyone's going to get injured at some point. You can have all the right pieces. We've seen teams have all the right pieces and still not be able to make it to the biggest stage. So what's going to have to give them? I mean, why does it happen in every other professional league except for the NFL? Because every damn team is so hard to play against and somebody's got to get a little lucky. And I think if anyone has the luck or the mojo going, it's Kansas City right now. I mean, it's a slim margin, but.
Look, you make a great point. Luck kind of ties in with health. You need to be lucky with health because that's nothing really you can do. So luck is 100% part of it. But I tried to do a little research. Maybe you guys have done more or can go do more. I wanted to look at teams that went back-to-back. What happened the next year? Was it a bunch of main guys getting traded off or leaving in free agency? What was it? It has to be a common denominator amongst all 9 teams. And when I did my initial research, I couldn't really find anything that stood out. But if we dove deeper into all 9 teams that were back-to-back, and what happened? I bet we will find a common denominator, and I'm guessing free agent health. That would be my guess.
Well, and then how many games they have to play nowadays. And for Kansas City, it's tough. The bye is so early this year. And then they have so many contenders. 3 games within a 10-day span? Yeah, that's
crazy.
That's nasty. It's hard.
It's going to be interesting to see. Now, we'll tell you this, Hayley, and Dustin, you maybe can back me up on this. For me, I said it earlier, practice was harder. Games were easier. So maybe at that time, you kind of build in a bye week within a non-bye week by, hey, at this point, we're just going to condition, get treatment, and watch film. Because you obviously can't have hard practices with 3 games in 10 days. So that may be a way. You're just playing games in that time. That's what I would do. We would go out, walkthroughs, a little conditioning, treatment, play the game.
How do you guys think Andy Reid would do with that?
Yeah. I think I remember like when we had that playoff loss to the Steelers, we were given the whole week off, just like we were in the regular season. Which he's got a great track record. There's no doubt about it. I think sometimes once you're in the postseason, you can't let guys get out of town and get out of their schedule and the healthy routines that they've built throughout training camp, being kind of away from their families at a place, and you come back. You do the same thing on Mondays, Tuesdays, Wednesdays, Thursdays, Fridays, just to get that sense of normalcy. And so Andy went to hey, we're at least going to be in the building for 3 days. Then you take like your Friday, Saturday, Sunday off, back in the building for a light workout on Mondays, kind of walk the field. Then I know after week 9, he did a great job of doing a 10-10-10 practice, which you got 10 offensive plays. Dante, this Dick Vermeil, there's no way he would do this. There's no way. It's just not happening. So you have 10 plays on O, 10 on D, 10 on special teams. And then you just rotate 3 times, and then you're off the field. Week 9, they take the helmets off, and they're just in jerseys. You see? I mean,
it's like that. And I love Dick Vermeil, but he definitely ran us into the ground. That's all he knew. He was old school. He didn't have all the, analytics and things that these coaches and players have these days. So you make a great point, and I think Andy Reid and his experience and his genius doing things like that will help them get through that 3 games in 10-day schedule.
Man, Dante would have lived for a 10-10-10. That you would have been in paradise.
That would have. Hey, I played 9 years in the league. I probably could have played another 15 years in the league. Dick Vermeil aged me in dog years with his practice. This man, like he not only is the core reason I had a career in the NFL, but he also took some years off my.
He retired you too.
My body was beat up by year 9.
That is so funny. So I have to ask you this. This has been kind of like, this has been big just with like Tony DePardo after watching like old film. And I want to take it back to the last 2 Super Bowls. And when you say you got to be lucky, you got to stay healthy, big players got to play big in big games and in those key moments. And I know back-to-back Super Bowls, there's one thing in common. There was an X factor there, pun intended, where Kadarius Toney returns a punt 65 yards down to the 5-6 yard line.
Yeah, right.
Or that game might have gone to the Eagles. And so when you look back at who the associate head coach is, Dave Toub, he has done such a good job. He's using what you use to your advantage is the Peter rule, where you're saying Peter, which means, hey, gunners may be getting out of the way, but the coverage teams slow down, and then you would scoop and just make people pay for it. Yep. So you have Kadarius Toney, and then last Super Bowl, you have Tommy Townsend kind of hitting the ball down the middle that comes down. They forget to use the Peter rules, and it hits the corner safety guy in the leg, and all of a sudden, next play we score. We had a hard time moving the ball. So I think the one thing that we have done unbelievable here since our 2020 Super Bowl is when other people have been missing field goals or haven't had a punter that has flipped the field or that dynamic punt returners, we've had all of that, offense, defense, and special teams. And Andy Reid has been able to bring in Spags, retain Dave Toub, guy that knows the X's and O's. He has a grading system from -6 to critical error loaf, all the way up to first and break of the tape. Even if we're hitting touchbacks, he wants people running through the end zone and showing, we're bringing the wood if you're bringing it out, right? And so I'll look at that as a pattern here that works in our favor. And you can talk about Dave Tobe. You never played for him, but you've seen his unique design in all of our
106, going back to Chicago with Devin Hester, right? Being his coach and the way they performed and went out for him. I think what Dave Tobe brings is that consistency, that credit, right? Credency of being like, I've coached the greatest, the GOAT. Here's my special teams coach. And like you say, and now he can go to film and like, this helped us win a Super Bowl. That helped us win a Super Bowl. So it's easier to get guys to buy in. Now, you're talking about trying to repeat, as you just mentioned, special teams, especially with this new kickoff dynamic rule, could very well play a big difference, a turnover, a big return, some type of special play that he draws up that swings a game or, finishes off a game. So great point in bringing him up. I have great respect for him. I think he will be an Hall of Fame special teams coach one day. I just have great respect for him.
Yeah, Dante, I think you make a really good point. The fact that this year, and a lot of times people forget about that third unit. They're always talking defense, offense, and forget about special teams as a whole. But it changes games. And Dustin, you've seen it too. It can, if there's a bad special teams game, it can completely muck everything good that happened maybe on offense or on defense. And really for another opposing team as well, if you can exploit their special teams, you can, run up the score and be able to make the game a completely different outcome than you thought.
Yeah, everyone, Hayley, everyone forgets about special teams until they show up.
Exactly. Exactly.
A big punt, like you said, Tommy Townsend doing a kick, and we get that muff. So they forget about it until it shows up big. But we NFLers, people inside the locker room, we know how important that is. Or any astute analyst like yourself, you know how important it is. Maybe the fans, your average fan, they may be like, oh, it's just a routine play. Because a lot of the kickoffs and things have become routine. But I think these dynamic special moments are definitely going to be brought back into the fold this season.
Yeah,
they're longer plays. Like that's that's essentially a 65-yard pass downfield at the 5-yard line. That punt return for a touchdown, right?
Pretty much.
You were good at telling me, because we were doing a lot of pooch punts and stuff in 2005. We had that offense that would, it wasn't strange to be look up and be like, we're in the third quarter and you got 20 first downs. But you look and you're like, wait a second. If you look at the math, like you would say, you've punted for 250 yards. That's unbelievable. Well, sometimes Dante would have 11 or 12 first downs just in punt return yards, if not more, 15. You never know. And so when you break down that hidden yardage of the special teams, that's why we were so good with Trent. When you look at those punt returns, we moved the ball really well. We'd pooch it inside the 10-yard line, and then we'd back another team up, and then you got to punt to this guy.
Yeah, Coach Vermeil used to always talk about, I want my offense going straight onto the field, meaning 40, 50.
Yeah.
Not going diagonal to the field, 10 to 20. So a lot of times people will only see touchdowns, but like you said, the hidden yardage, where your team starting. You caught it on the 15, but yet the offense is running out to the 35. Well, that opens up the entire playbook. Now we're not just trying to get out of our own end zone. So hidden yardage, like you say, a little simple 13-yard return that takes you from the 12. Now you're starting on the 25. Hidden yardage doesn't seem like a lot, but when Patrick now comes out, play action, throws a bomb to Kelsey or whoever, that 13-yard return allowed the coordinator to feel comfortable calling that.
Now, I know you got your daughter's turning 9 today. You got a birthday party to get to and celebrate her. So I'll kind of wrap it up here. And Dustin, if you want to jump in for one more, you can. But I wonder what was going through your head. You got inducted into the Chiefs Hall of Fame recently. When you were, what kind of pride, I guess, really goes into it? The pride that you have, what you left on the field. I mean, the infamous returns and touchdowns and what you were able to bring to the team, but also the building blocks that you started with Kansas City in this franchise. And then you get to say that you're a Chief and associate yourself with what they are doing now. Maybe walk us through what was going through your mind when you were on that field accepting that honor.
Man, I just was so overcome with emotions because at that point I got my family, my kids, my mom, everything had culminated to that point. So I'm on that field and I'm looking up and I'm just soaking it all in. And the proudest moment for me at that particular time was looking at my kids looking up and seeing that.
Oh.
Now when I tell them, hey, this is how you go to, about in this world, this is how you become successful, maybe they'll listen now. Maybe daddy knows things about a little bit now. So that was the proudest thing for me, was having my kids be able to witness that, because a lot of times guys are not, you may be 60, 70 years old, or you may pass away and your kids are not able to see that at a young age. So very fortunate that at a time when the Chiefs are amidst a dynasty, that Clark Hunt would say, you know what, we're going to induct him during this time. So it has definitely been great for me off the field as well, riding this wave of the dynasty. But more than anything, my biggest and most proudest moment was having my family, my mom specifically, and my kids being able to witness that.
Yeah, I remember, looking up at that stadium when I got there in 2005, and during the week, I always wanted to go over there and kick where I'm taking the test. So we'd go over there and kick during the stadiums if we had a home game. And I remember going over there and reading just all the guys' names on there, thinking like, man, I'd love, that would be such an honor to do that, and to be on the Ring of Honor and to just be kind of etched in stone in that stadium.
Oh, your day is coming. You can believe that, Dustin. It's coming.
But those guys were names other than Lamar Hunt that, like, I'd met them at Kansas City Chiefs ambassador stuff. And, just some of these older players that kind of built the brand in Kansas City. Some of these guys that packed their bags in Dallas and came over here to Kansas City.
Yeah.
But it's a whole new deal when I see guys like Tamba Ali, Will Shields, Willie Rove, Dante Hall looking up there, and you're going like, I got to play with those guys. Like, I got to play with those guys.
Yeah.
And just go to work and get better and hone your skills. Something that I remember looking around thinking every day, like, oh my Lord, like, we're in the NFL.
Let me give you a funny story. So talk about combination, and my first experience when I first went in, a little different than yours. I first get drafted, you come in as a rookie, and I'm looking around and I see Deron Cherry's name because he's number 20. And that was my rookie number. So I'm like, who the hell is Deron Cherry? I had no clue. So it's funny, now we're good friends. My family's close with his family. I know who the hell he is now for sure, and what a staple he is in the Kansas City community. But it's just so funny that at the time, my rookie year, I had no idea who this man is. And now I'm in a position to know who he is, call him a friend, and appreciate what he did to put his name up there.
He was a heck of a punter, too. I mean, he was a heck of a punter.
Didn't I know that?
Oh, man, dude, he had a big foot. Yeah. No, he could punt. Rutgers, like, this guy's an all-around athlete.
Just dropped a film on my head. Didn't I know that?
Yeah. Oh, it's like, we jammed the first time. Like, I met him and some of the little groups that we belong to in Overland Park, Kansas, and his wife. I mean, he's got such a great family. When I think about some of the guys that, I don't know if the organization rubs off on them, the organization knows how to draft the right way, but like, it always seems like these guys that stick around Kansas City and always come back, they're such family-oriented dudes.
Yeah.
And man, and you fit that mold, and that's why.
That's because the Chiefs, in my opinion, starting with the late great Lamar Hunt, he set a family atmosphere. I played for the Rams. I know a ton of guys, as you do, that plays for other team, and we talk. And the one thing that I always notice, guys that play for teams that are run by corporate guys, like, Frankie, whatever guy name that runs the Rams, Kroenke. Yeah, the big real estate guy, Kroenke. Anyway, that's a corporate ran, so the organization is ran like that. You look at the Rooneys in Pittsburgh, you look at the Crafts in New England, you look at the Hunts in Kansas City. Teams that are family run at the top, I feel like have a family run atmosphere around their organization.
Yeah, that's true. And I think I've told this story before, Dante. I don't know if you know this, but I remember my freshman year when Lamar Hunt was still around. We were in the indoor complex.
Wait, did you say your freshman year? You mean your rookie year?
Yeah, I know. I always say
he's been a college coach too long now.
Yeah, I felt like a freshman with all those old guys in the room. I mean, and so my rookie year, we're kicking inside. The weather had already turned in Kansas City. I'm kicking the ball up into the roof, which those days you hated because you couldn't see a lot of footballs on air and stuff. And I remember he was there for business meetings on Fridays like he always did. That was amazing to me that they would spend, 3+ days every week during football season in that whole family, which is unbelievable to me. I love it. And anyway, I'm plugging to the ceiling, and you remember what the ceiling started looking like halfway through my rookie year. I mean, there were holes all in that ceiling. And I remember he came up and tugged me on the jersey after like the second one hit. And he goes, "Hey, you need to hit directly to the return person. Like, we don't want the roof looking like that." And so I was like, oh, that's my bad. I hit a couple straight to you, just kind of like served him up. I just said, "I'm sorry. I didn't want to get in a bad habit of putting the ball in the return guy's hands too quickly in the game." Well, he saw a couple just like passes like out of Trent Green's hands not coming off my foot. And he goes, "Hey, never mind. You just go ahead, and I don't want you to get bad habits. Go ahead and hit the roof. Just replace it before you leave." Yeah, that was Lamar Hunt. He kind of in a nutshell, right? I mean, gosh, making free agents pay for their meals when they come to such funny.
God, that's hilarious.
That was him in a nutshell. Very business, but very personal. You really don't get that with a guy with his prestige that essentially started the NFL. To be that grounded, be that level-headed and personable. That's one thing I definitely love and miss about Lamar Hunt.
Yeah, the Chiefs are unique. Their family is unique, and what they do here in Kansas City is very unique. And I think that we all can say we're very privileged, to be associated or part of that.
100%, Hayley. Well said, guys.
Well, I think we are going to wrap it up so you can go party for the birthday. Have cake.
It's party
have
time.
Cupcakes, have balloons. Tell her happy birthday from us.
We're on our way to the Museum of Ice Cream.
Oh,
did you get some ice cream yesterday on the beach?
It's funny you said that. When you said, I just laughed. Dude, that's where we stayed 2 blocks from that place. That's our favorite place.
I love it. Well, it's much deserved. So have a great rest of your day. And again, thank you so much for being with us.
Of course, man. See you guys. Peace and love.
Thanks, Doctor.
Yeah.
Thanks for listening to KC Sports Network. Make sure you download our new app. Find it on the App Store or Google Play. Just search KC Sports Network. Entertain, educate, inform. KC Sports Network.
It seems like every single week we get not better and better, but just great interviews after great interviews.
Yeah, it's special when you got guys that are in such big conversations throughout their careers in Kansas City that want to come on. Some of them still living in the city, some that travel better than most NFL teams to away games just because they missed those games that they were playing in, whether that was in Dallas or in Pittsburgh or in New England. And so Dante Hall is one of the best ever to do it. We know that with, his skill set. And like I said in the show, it's tough coming into Arrowhead Stadium or when we would go on the road, for punters to have a good day because they knew who they were putting the ball to.
Yeah, and I think he brought a lot of insight behind what the return game used to be, what it's going to potentially be seen as this season, and just how things are changing. But also to kind of hear, for me, it was cool to hear the perspective of the old school football that Dick Vermeil would run. And I know we talked to him earlier a few weeks ago, but just to hear how practices were so intense that you guys really got more preparation, more out of the practice than you ever would out of an NFL game, being so prepared because, nothing on the NFL or slate, I guess you would say, ever really surprised you because of how he ran practice.
Oh, absolutely. And, some of those in training camp up in River Falls was two sets of 3-hour practices, and Dante wanted to be punted to both times. And so I thought my leg was going to fall off, and it was always like, hey, we need 5 O's here. I want it to be super hard up in the air. I want it to, fall away from me. I want him to go. I want to have to turn and run. I want to have to come up and get into traffic. And so, and like you said, he learned from Will Shields, Willie Roaf, Priest Holmes. Like, he watched those guys put in a good work day, and it really translated into big things happening in Arrowhead and other stadiums during Sunday, Monday, and then Thursday nights.
Yeah. You know him a lot more personal than I do. I've met him through, charity events here in Kansas City, different interviews and everything like that. But the guy, to kind of hear of who he was on the practice field, what was he in the locker room? What kind of, now that he's not here, you can say all the things, what kind of personality did he bring to the team that, we all get to see who he is outside of that? You guys got to see who he was in the locker room.
Yeah, just contagious. That effort was contagious because all the guys knew that, like, hey, if you're on the punt cover team, you got to get down there because this guy's he's gonna try to find that vertical seam and get north and south to south really, really quickly. Mm-hmm. And so he brought that energy every day. He knew that, like, when we were putting Wednesday, Friday, and then game day, whatever day of week that was, he was bringing his best. He said, look, we got 3 opportunities during the week and we got to make the most of them. And so, like, he was a vocal leader in the locker room. He was very inclusive of guys for Thursday night meals with position groups. He was always wanting to spend time outside of the building because he knew it built chemistry down the stretch for these longer seasons.
Yeah, and I think he also made a good point about the franchise, the three-peat, what inevitably, or what everyone is hoping happens after winning back-to-back, hoping to get that three-peat, but just how thin that margin of error is, and we've heard everyone talk about it, but he really hit the head on, the injury aspect. Yeah, a little bit of luck, but really it's going to be, can these guys stay healthy? You know better than anyone. I mean, the amount of work that you guys have to put in during the season, the wear and tear that it goes on your body, and then trying to stay healthy when you have that many elite teams you're facing in the league. And I mean, is it plausible? It just seems so tough because of how things kind of stack up nowadays in the league.
Yeah, it's a long season. When you're having double teams constantly, like with Kels and, these guys like Mecole, you see Schuster-Smith back. Yeah. And like guys like that, you got to kind of manage the Ferraris in the building. And that is something that they've managed to do well. I know that their training room budget here in the last 5 years skyrocketed because they understand that if their players are healthy, then they're going to be playing better. They're going to be, 100%. And, a lot of teams that I've heard and that I spend time with players, you'll hear guys and coaches and or coaches especially, they'll say, this is the best you're going to feel all year. Mm-hmm. I remember in Kansas City, they changed that pitch. They changed that tune and said, there's no reason why we shouldn't feel good all year if you spend your time here in the training room, cold tubs. They do massage work on a weekly basis. So they've really stepped that budget up in that training room, and you can tell the guys are playing fresh.
The last one I want to get before we sign off here is we're going into week 1. The Ravens are going to be here in Kansas City as the Chiefs open up on opening night. Thinking back to your rookie season, what were you feeling going onto the field for your first NFL game? I mean, the preseason is gone. They are stepping onto the field. This is the first game of the entire season. All eyes on them. All the other teams aren't busy yet. They're not. It's not game day for them yet. So they're going to have their eyes glued to Kansas City. How do you think those rookies are feeling?
Yeah, I look back at Andy Reid's training camps, and I remember the run test back in the day got you ready for the first day of practice, and he has every day so regimented that he's going to have those guys ready. And they look at those 3 preseason games and say, once you play those 3 games, you're not a rookie anymore. That's always been the case in Kansas City, and we historically, since Brett Veach has been here, we've done really well getting guys in free agency or the draft that are ready to play along with our key players. And I don't see that changing. I know when I look back at the last 2 Super Bowls and the AFC Championship type games, the margin for error has been so small, and it usually falls back on special teams. Like we talked about, the 65-yard punt, the 40-yard punt that hits off the corner safety where they don't use those correct Peter calls, which Dave was so good. He even has a 7-yard rule that if a ball hits the ground, he wants those return guys to get within 7 yards because usually that ball to you. Man, all these little teeny things make Dave and what he does there in Andy Hill exceptional. He's got one of the best kickers in the league, if not the best, the most powerful. And what I think this game is going to come down to, which we saw in the AFC Championship game, is composure. The Baltimore Ravens were not able to do that. They were showboating there on big catches downfield. You never reach unless it's a game. It's the clock is winding down and it's end of the game. You try to secure that ball. They did that. The ball gets knocked out, Snead in the end zone, and they really ruined that, not maintaining composure. Kansas City Chiefs don't do that. That's not Chiefs football.
Hey, they're used to being on the biggest of stages, and it shows on the field. So hopefully this Thursday is another win for Kansas City, taking it over on the Baltimore Ravens. Dustin, always appreciate you taking the time. Always appreciate you getting us the best guests. We'll go ahead and sign off for myself and Dustin. This is Hang Time, and we'll be back after the Chiefs wrap things up against the Ravens next week. You can catch us on Tuesday.